Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. In a world where action movies are constantly exploding at the box office, our heroes take on the monumental task of dissecting and analyzing all aspects of action movies to truly understand what it takes to make a great action film. Ben Bateman, Andrew Ghai, in a Popcorn Talk Network exclusive. This is Action Movie Anatomy.
Boom! Welcome to the show. Welcome to Action Movie Anatomy on the Popcorn Talk Network, the online network dedicated to talking movies and all things movie related. I'm your host today, Ben Bateman, joined today by my trusted co-host, Mr. Andrew Ghai in the pink shirt and the fake Burberry tie.
It's not a Burberry. It's real. It's real. It's not.
It's not.
Okay, the Burberry store.
Colin Trevorrow.
What we do on this show echoes through eternity.
Yeah, if you guys can't tell. Well, let's introduce all of our guests before we get into the film.
All right, fine. I'm Andrew Ghai. Hi. Glad to be back.
Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks, Ben.
Are you prepared today?
I am very prepared for this.
He's been preparing for years.
I was born to do this episode.
I was born ready. So I'll tell you who else was born ready is Miss Sara Stretton, a first-time guest on Action Movie Anatomy. Welcome to the show.
I normally feel ready, but that boom just kind of scared me.
It's a big boom.
It's a big boom. Yeah. I didn't even realize that it was my thing for a while until I watched the beginning of a bunch of our episodes, and I realized that I did it on like 9 episodes in a row, and now it's my thing.
And now you just own it.
Now I own the boom.
Do you only own the boom on this show, or do you kind of walk through life with the boom?
Like if you go to my Twitter page, it's like saying boom on my podcast since 1979.
It's like boom, wheatgrass shot.
Yeah, boom. Just by the way, guys, and I know we mentioned we would never reference Tom Cruise again, but do you guys realize that his Twitter says running in movies since 1981? That's like my favorite. That's like the best Twitter description I've ever heard in my life.
Nobody's watching anymore.
That's good.
They all stopped.
Yeah, everyone stopped. Everyone's gone now.
You referenced Tom Cruise.
He's given running lessons to other actors.
I believe it.
He's the best.
He's the greatest runner on film.
All right, we digress. Today, guys, we are doing
Anything else?
This is Sara Stretton, one more time, just in case anyone was wondering. We went on a tangent. Today we were doing Gladiator. This is your favorite movie of all time. This is your favorite movie of all time, and I like it a lot.
And you like it a lot? God, man.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you guys.
I'm going to hijack the show.
What happened was this. We do movies on this show that refer to 4 basic rules in the action movie world, okay? So 1981 or later, that's not even a rule. That's just, we could go beyond that, but it's hard to find movies that really stand up. They don't really feel like the same type of movies. The 4 rules that we stick with are, number 1, the hero always plays by their own rules. Rule number 2, the hero and the villain are always the smartest people or things or beings or aliens or dinosaurs in the room. Rule number 3, the hero is always a police, military, or political figure. And rule number 4, there's at least one explosion. Today's film, Gladiator, Best Picture at the Academy Awards in 2000, fits all those rules perfectly.
And yet you were opposed to it.
I'll tell you why.
And yet.
We have these rules, but I really feel personally that tone is king. Like I think about the movies we do on this show. Some examples of movies we've done and we will do. Point Break, The Rock, Speed, Con Air, Terminator 2, Predator, even a movie like Gone in 60 Seconds. They all have the same tone. They feel like this one kind of movie. Movies that would come out, there would be no expectation to win an Oscar. Movies that would come out, there's no franchised character like a Captain America or a source material like Lord of the Rings. It's like, even in Terminator 2's case, you've got a character that came from a previous film, but it's a franchised movie.
Right.
Action movies. Not action dramas, not action Oscar-winning movies. And in memory, to me, this movie didn't feel like that. This movie, Gladiator, felt like it was an Oscar winner. It was just way too high quality.
Yeah, I mean, let's say we did this show in 2000. We would not do this movie on the show.
No way.
Or if this movie was remade now, we wouldn't do it because it would take itself too seriously, or back then it would have been too serious of a movie to do on the show.
Yes.
The feel when you go back and watch this movie, now this movie's 15 years old, which makes me feel kind of old.
Yep.
But it's 15 years old. It's dated. It has a different feel to it. It's not Oscar bait anymore.
No.
It's a great 90s, early 2000s action movie.
It's a higher quality movie than most of the movies we do on this show.
Yes.
It was better in watching it. It wasn't like I watched it and I was like, this is a piece of crap.
No.
But I don't think that The Rock's a piece of crap. And a lot of people do. Like, this movie is way cornier and way more 90s action than I ever could have imagined. And we will get into that as we talk about thesis statements and whatnot. But that is what we're doing on the show, and I feel comfortable doing it on the show. There's a lot of amazing trivia and incredible production stuff that will explain why it qualifies. But before we do any of that, let's watch the trailer, because the trailer makes it look like a huge 90s piece of crap.
I haven't seen this in so long.
The trailer actually makes it look awful.
Again, though, this is back when trailers were not great yet.
Yeah.
And clearly.
Oh, man.
Just the start right there.
The general. Right?
Yeah. Like
Oh, wow.
black on
Getting a
white.
slave.
Or white on black. Times New Roman.
Yeah.
You hear the music?
Yeah, you hear the music?
It kind of, listening to it, you can kind of hear pirates.
Oh, yeah, you can hear
It's
I mean,
so
Hans Zimmer, he did
inspired,
Pirates,
yeah.
he did The Rock.
It's
he did-
nearly identical
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Pirates. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Who is he?
Who is he?
Remove your helmet and tell me your name.
My name is Gladiator.
My name is Gladiator.
Father to a murdered son,
Boom.
husband to a murdered wife.
Oh, man, I don't know what you're talking about. This is the greatest trailer I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about either. This is so exciting.
Become more powerful than the Emperor of Rome.
They said you were a giant.
There was an explosion for you.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Fireball.
This is pure excitement.
This is the greatest movie of all time.
It's being sold as an action movie to you right now in the trailer. They're saying
Yes,
this is...
it is.
It's not.
They are showing me exhilaration. They're not showing me dramatic monologues.
Yeah.
Even though it also succeeds in that area.
Yeah, they give you some of the sweetest
all the best
lines.
speeches.
Echoes of
Yeah.
this- Russell.
Maximus.
Maximus! Gladiator. Look at that.
So, God, I think we can all agree that if that movie were to come out today, they would show you far less of the action.
Yeah.
It would be 2 minutes and 43 seconds long. It would be far more dramatic,
yeah.
way more melodramatic.
They'd
they
show
would-
like the scene of him like holding his wife or son's feet.
Yes. Mhm.
They'd show him like riding through all beaten up.
and they
Get
do
the
that
hand.
in the revised trailers, the ones that were released in like 2014, the ones that are like selling the remastered Blu-ray. That's what
Right.
the trailers look like.
course,
Is
yeah.
it the hand through the field?
Yes,
Yes.
a lot of that
Of course.
stuff.
It's not even his hand, but
So I think it's very interesting. I want to get into thesis statements right away because I do feel that will kind of explain all of our positions on this movie. And I think it's a really interesting one. I mean, it's polarizing in a lot of ways. I'm mostly sold. There's still parts of me that when I watch it, I'm excusing it a little bit, but it qualifies for the show.
Perfect.
At this point, I agree. Before we do that, though, I do want to let everybody know that they should check us out on iTunes. They should review us and rate us on iTunes. We have Action Movie Anatomy mugs that should be here in about 2 weeks.
the mugs are coming.
We've mentioned them several times. The order's taking a little while. We're going to be giving them away in random drawings to people that interact with us on YouTube and iTunes. But the thing that we have to do, the baseline, is we need 10 written reviews on iTunes. Look up Action Movie Anatomy on iTunes. Go to the thing. Leave us 5. Give us 5 more. We got 5 this week since we talked to you guys last week about it.
That's right.
Give us 5 more. Rate us. Review us. Let us know what you think of the show. Be honest. Let us know if you don't
honest.
like the show.
Yeah.
We just need 10. And we will start giving them away. Aside from that, please check out the other shows on the Popcorn Talk Network. Anatomy of a Movie is the closest thing to what we do. They just do all kinds of movies in a much more systematic breakdown.
Yeah.
And they are doing this week, I know, the Transporter film Refueled, the new one that's going to be on Friday. So check that out. And aside
It's a
from
great show. I had fun when I sat in on that panel, although you weren't there that day. I filled in for her.
I disappear sometimes.
Stretton does a
I
good
don't know
amount
what
of anatomy.
happens. I go into my little hole in my room.
Little hobbit. Hermit.
Yeah. The
Not
Hobbit.
a hobbit.
I
Her
could be
feet
a
are not
hobbit.
hairy. I don't know that.
Okay. We're getting off subject. So please, iTunes reviews, ratings, and let's get into thesis statements. So this is a part we like to interact with you guys on the show. If you're watching, let us know this is a bold statement, something that's just like, it's not like this is my favorite, this, that, or the other, or like that scene where it's one of the coolest. It's like, this is the best this, or this is the first time this has ever happened.
Yeah.
It's often kind of rooted in hyperbole, and so if you can come up with one of your own, let us know. What are your guys' thesis statements?
Do you
Ladies
want
first?
to- I'll start.
Yeah.
This was a hard thesis statement just because I do love this movie so much. So I came up with Gladiator is a film that best combines nostalgia, inspiration, and entertainment for me when I watch it. Like,
Totally.
just
More
those
than any
three
movie?
elements. There comes readily to mind, yes. Because it combine. I'm also a huge Star Wars fan, so a lot of those
So am I.
elements are also in that franchise.
Yeah.
But as a singular movie, as one that doesn't combine itself in a franchise world,
Right.
Gladiator, yes, combines nostalgia, inspiration, like scope, and entertainment value in one film.
Yeah.
I love it.
Basically, it's your favorite movie of all time, is what you're saying. It's the greatest
It's the
movie
best.
ever.
I do love
It makes her feel the best.
It
Yeah.
makes me feel wonderful.
Fair enough. Okay?
I'm like giddy over here.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited to be talking about this movie.
This is like how it's gonna be when we do Point Break.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose.
Shut up, Ben.
I'm gonna lose
Yeah.
my mind.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time keeping it together. For me, this is the greatest action drama in which both of the leads give their greatest performances of their career of all time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid.
Oh, I know.
I like it.
I haven't slept in a week, okay? I've been thinking about this every night.
Yeah, I mean,
Congrats.
does Russell Crowe have a better performance in his career than this? Probably
No.
not.
I mean, I feel like
He
the biggest
doesn't.
argument is Joaquin Phoenix because his career has taken such a turn
Yeah.
over the last decade. But it's this role, like when I watched this as a kid,
Yeah.
I was like, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
He's an asshole. I never want to see him in another movie again. Because when you're a kid, you don't really understand.
Yeah.
You just like think he's just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But then you go through and you see his career and all the other things he's done. He's clearly a phenomenal actor.
Yeah,
But this
absolutely.
role, above all, even watching it now, 15 years later, it still has the same effect on me.
Yeah.
You still watch it, you're like, God, I hate you. I can't wait for you to die. Now
I
that I
won't
know.
give
Spoiler
in
alert.
the best performance of his career, but I will give Russell Crowe's, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Russell Crowe. Like he's been great in so many things, but when
He
I
was
really
phenomenal in A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, I mean, The Insider is my favorite Russell Crowe movie. LA Confidential is incredible. I mean,
Master and Commander.
do you like Master and Commander?
Noah.
Cinderella Man.
Yeah.
No, he's been great in a lot of movies, but it's just hard. It's like you can't really.
And this is also the movie that was a turning point in both their careers. Like Russell Crowe was already on his way up.
Yeah.
But after this, it was like, I am the best leading man in film right now.
He had a really good stretch.
Yeah.
He had a really good stretch.
Same with Joaquin. Like his career completely changed after this.
Yeah, huge. All right, my thesis statement is that this is the only time that a movie that fits our genre has won Best Picture, ever.
Yeah.
It's the only time. And I do think that it's because this movie was not intended to be as good as it was. And that's evidenced in everything we're going to talk about in the production
Yes.
notes. This is an accidental Oscar winner.
I feel like he just created a little box, like, around Gladiator, which allows him to do it on the show.
He did. He's like, this one fits
just
perfectly.
This one.
It's just the one.
It's true. I mean, when you look at the production notes, this film was a mistake. This film was...
It's not a mistake, but the
was a-
success.
The success was a mistake.
Yeah.
The heart and the genuine nature of the acting is almost a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so when I was a kid, I used to go to these two local video stores with my dad's house, and I would, like, after high school, I would go just hang out, and I knew all the guys there, and they're all like big movie nerd critics, you know, whatever. We'd chat about movies, and they were all cynical, and they were all like super jaded, and you know, they had all their weird B movies, and they're in just video store guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a different time.
I worked in a video store.
There's no such thing as video stores anymore, so the younger generation doesn't even know what we're talking about.
There's one in West Hollywood. You
Video
can find
store?
him.
Yeah.
There's one in West Hollywood, and he is the mastermind of movies.
Okay.
Really?
Go talk to
Vidiots in Santa Monica is another one that still
yeah, I've
exists,
seen that.
but they're few and far between. So, for those of you that don't know, video stores were basically like Netflix, except with videos on the aisles,
Except
and you
for you
had a
could
bunch
touch
of
things.
burnout movie nerds that would work there. That you would like be like, "Do you have Gladiator?" It'd be like, "Leave."
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of movie they hate because it's like popcorn, big action, Oscar winner, and they're like, that's not even a good movie. That's the kind of people that tell you that like Shawshank Redemption's a bad movie or something like that. You're just like, what are you
Just
talking
a
about?
feel-good movie. You're like, no, it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah. So with this one, I do remember when this came out, and in the years following, the attitude from a lot of those guys was like, that movie's so overrated. It's like just a big feel-good popcorn action movie, and me being like, no way, this movie's sweet. And then in the years, that's why.
Yeah.
But looking back on it now, I don't think they were right.
I mean, everyone likes this movie. This movie is completely...
Yes.
It's acceptable to all demographics. My mom has seen this movie so many times because
Right.
I just had this playing in the background all day, every day growing up, and she loves it. It appeals to kids. It appeals to adults. It appeals to adult women. There's a great story. Like, this movie is for everybody.
Yes.
And that's why, again, it's like people like that, vidiots, movie nerds, like people, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
They don't like movies that do that.
If you look at like the 25 movies that won Best Picture around this movie, it's hard to like. This almost doesn't have a comp. Like
Yeah.
you talk about some of the movies in the 5, 6, 7, 8 years following it. You've got like $1 Million Baby, No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
Like I guess Return of the King, but that's like
American
the third
Beauty,
movie. Yeah,
like-
American Beauty. Before it, The English Patient.
Yeah.
Like these are. I mean, Titanic, but that's again, it's like a period piece, romantic epic. Like, this is an action movie. It's a
Epic.
straight up action movie.
Epic.
Yeah, epic. So anyway, that is sort of where I'm going with my thesis statement. We are going to get into our fist pump moments. Fist pump moments, guys, there's a lot of them in this movie. And fist pump moments it's not like the sweetest moment in the movie. It's your personal it's like your personal FBI moment. I always describe it. If you're sitting on the couch and you're watching the movie and it's like 1 a.m., you've had a few drinks, there's no one around, and something happens, and you're like, is anybody else seeing this right now? Like, that's the moment. It could be anything. So I'm going to start on this one.
Please do.
My fist pump moment is at the end when Commodus is fighting Maximus, and his sword gets knocked down, and he goes and he's like, Quintus, sword, and he doesn't do anything, and he's like, give me a sword, and he's like, sheathe your swords.
Yeah.
You're like, yes, you're gonna die. I actually had a physical fist pump watching it when that happened.
Quintus is such a weasel.
Yeah.
He like realizes he's like, okay, he's gonna die now. I need to make sides with Maximus again because I already screwed him over.
I disagree.
He's a flip-flopping backstabber.
He does flip-flop, but it's because he learned. He learned that he made a mistake. He saw when he gets stabbed by Commodus in private. Quintus sees and is like, I feel bad for you, and I realize that I'm serving an evil man.
Because what if Commodus wins? Quintus gets executed immediately. I think he's a flip-flopper.
Well, I mean, at the same time, he had the option in the beginning to challenge, like, Quintus, why are you on? Like, he had the chance to turn on him, but he didn't. So,
promise me you'll look after my family.
It's his arc. He learns his lesson, and he changes.
I hate him.
Come on.
Quintus's arc is definitely what I was paying attention to in this movie. Get out of here.
My fist pump moment is in the very beginning when he's taken off to get executed.
Yeah.
He's like, at least give me a clean death.
Yep.
A soldier's death.
Yep.
You're like, what is he going to do right now?
You know he's going to kill all of them.
And then he kills all of them. He does the headbutt. He stabs him like holding the blade.
Yeah.
He cuts the dude's like head in half, and then he throws the sword.
What's he yell at him?
Praetorian.
Yeah. And the guy's like
He's like drinking wine. He's like, bleh.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, this is not going to end well for me. And then he just drives off to him.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I could give my fist pump moment just to the score of coming in like scene 2, where it switches to the telltale gladiator sound.
Right.
But for me, it really comes in where I get the stillness and like that just need to have moment when he does the reveal after turning his back on Commodus.
I mean, that's...
And he's like, no. And he goes back and he's just like, I am Maximus.
Yeah, right.
And does this whole, that moment every
it's
time
incredible.
reminds me
It
like
gives you
why
chills.
I watch it, why I love these characters, and puts them face to face, and it shows you that this is just going to build. This is just going to be more action drama.
Let me ask you this. If that's your fist bump moment, and guys, I hope that we're not going off topic too much here because this is a moment that it's very important to me. You're a huge Star Wars fan?
Yes.
My favorite moment in the history of Star Wars is no, I want to be a Jedi like my father. I seriously, I almost get teary-eyed, probably because I watched Jedi so many times as a kid. But that's the same moment.
Yes.
It's totally the exact same energy, everything. Right?
It's everything is escalating, and then there's the reveal, and then instead of
the
reveal, he's got
continues.
the broken arrow in his hand, and he turns his back on him. You're just like, what is going to happen? And then he takes off the mask. Just the look. When he turns around, you see Commodus' face. You're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really good.
I'm like clawing at my own hand.
Yeah, I know. I'm freaking out here. Okay, let's move on.
All right, let's move on. So we're going to get into some star profiles here. We're going to talk about where these guys were in their careers when this movie was made. Interesting one. We alluded to it a little bit. So we'll start with Russell Crowe. 3 previous films listed here. We have The Insider. That's the Michael Mann. It's not a biopic. It is sort of a biopic, but it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
Big tobacco scandal thriller. Awesome movie with Al Pacino. One of my favorite movies. Mystery Alaska from 1999, which I never saw.
I haven't seen it. People seem to like it, though.
I don't even know what Mystery Alaska is. It was one of those ones I had to like look up because I was like, what is this?
Is it a hockey movie, or am I making that up?
I don't know.
I can't remember anything about it.
I looked up something about it, but
what is this?
Yeah, and then
Never
LA
saw it.
Confidential, which was 97. So he got Oscar nominations for LA Confidential and The Insider. So he was totally doing like the mid-30s leading man, I'm going to win an Oscar eventually thing.
Right.
And he knocked it out of the park, obviously. If those 3 of your 4 movies are LA Confidential, The Insider, and Gladiator, I'd say you're having a pretty good few years.
You're having a good stretch.
Yeah. And I do remember when this movie came out, Russell Crowe was like, he was low A or high B list at the time. He was like one of those, I guess kind of like what Tom Hardy is right now.
Yeah, I think he was a little more under the radar, gunning for an Oscar type. You know, he's a little older, I think. Right?
Hardy hasn't really been in contention for an Oscar yet, and Crowe was definitely in contention for both of those films. In fact, did he win for LA Confidential? Now that I'm remembering,
I don't know. We'll get back to
for
that.
supporting.
We'll check.
Yeah, can you check on that? So, but I do remember that the next movie that came out after this was Proof of Life. And it's funny because I recall Proof of Life coming out and telling my dad, like, let's go see Proof of Life. And he was like, the reviews on the movie are horrible. Like, that movie's apparently not good. We did Born last week, Born Identity. It's a plug. You guys can check it out on the Popcorn Talk Network. It's last week's episode. And Tony Gilroy, who wrote Born Identity and As I Just a Total Boss, also wrote Proof of Life. And I was assuming that maybe I had missed that movie and I should watch it. And then I looked at the reviews and it's like 50%. Like,
Yeah, I think I watched part of it and it wasn't very exciting.
For me, Gladiator was really what introduced me to Russell Crowe. I did not see his movies before.
I was 12 years old, you know.
And this was one of the first rated R movies I ever saw, was Gladiator. And from that, I just know that in tracking Russell Crowe's career, it's always been since Gladiator, he tries to find that niche market, whether it's in movies like Noah or Robin Hood.
Yeah.
He is pushing for that epic with heart,
because
he's never succeeded in the
so good at it. Like every line he delivers in this movie, you're just like, yes, like that's his pinnacle. That's the best that Russell Crowe gets. That's Russell Crowe at his Russell Crowe-iest, as we call it. And we always say the smartest guy in the room effect. He's Russell Crowe is never the smartest guy in the room in the way that Clooney is. He's not charming in the same way. This is his smartest guy in the room moment. Absolutely.
I'm the most badass guy in the room.
He was nominated for Beautiful Mind and The Insider, and he won for Gladiator.
So not LA Confidential. No. Okay.
There we go.
So, yeah, I would agree with you guys, actually. In 2000, I hadn't seen LA Confidential or The Insider. Both of those were movies that I went back and watched after the fact.
Because of what he did in this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is, again, why this movie's so digestible. It's, you know what I mean? It's one of those reasons that, like, I think a good example that you could compare it to, not in terms of style, but in terms of its likability.
Mission Impossibles?
No. I was going to say Argo. In the way that Argo, when it came out, everybody was sort of like, this movie's really good. It's really enjoyable and entertaining, but is it really going to win Best Picture? And I think Gladiator was kind of the same way. Like, this movie's really good. The performances are great, but are we really going to give Best Picture to this movie?
I could see that.
I mean, I think the thing that this has going for it that Argo doesn't is that this is much higher paced.
Yeah, well, it's obvious, way more epic
crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's that same sort of thing. Some movies, you know, The English Patient or something, you know that's going to win Best Picture. No Country for Old Men, right?
Yeah, they just feel like that type of movie.
Yeah, I mean,
but this movie felt like that type of movie in 2000, I think.
But I also think what adds to why we're still talking about it and why it's memorable is for a Best Picture, and for Russell Crowe, the dialogue is very much cheesy, memorable. So it has some of the most quoted lines ever. And if you look at where we mostly get quotes from, it's not from movies that are winning Oscars.
It's true.
It's from movies that we do on this show. Movies like The Rock, movies like Terminator 2,
movies like Gladiator.
Yeah, which is why it's on the show.
Now it's on the show.
Joaquin Phoenix. Now, Joaquin Phoenix was not on the same upward trajectory. This is definitely the movie that broke him open. I mean, look at these movies. Clay Pigeons. I've seen Clay Pigeons probably in like 1998. I don't remember
He's also very young.
Yeah.
Very young at this point. He's in his 20s.
Yeah.
And to have think about actors now who are in their 20s and are getting nominated.
Yeah.
You're looking at actors like Jennifer Lawrence, who was wowed for how young she was to be at that caliber. He got there also at that same age. That is such an achievement.
Yeah.
And it still lasts.
Right.
It's something that you look back and you don't knock that performance at all.
Yeah, when you get movies where a performance is timeless over a decade and a half, that's when you really, like, you know that this movie is not aged. Even though parts of it have aged, but like when performances don't age, that's when you know you have a great film.
What's funny, so 8mm, which is the sweetest Nick Cage film from 1999, and then The Yards, which I never watched.
Never saw it.
But if you think about this movie in 2000, I remember seeing it and thinking, and then in the few years after it, like thinking like, God, this guy's such like a sniveling little bitch. Yeah. And just like I hated him. I was like
hated him.
But I didn't hate him like think like he did a great job. I hated him like he's unwatchable. Like I hate him in this movie. Like it makes me. And then like, but you watch his career go, and you're like, oh, he's capable of all this great. So that was
a phenomenal actor.
That was just a great performance, is what it turned out.
And then on top of that, his career has obviously flourished.
Yeah.
But they always say that when you copy someone, it's flattery. And the people who have referenced him and this performance as inspiration for their roles, everything from like Joffrey in Game of Thrones to older actors, like people look at this role for context, for inspiration.
Absolutely.
And I think that is remarkable.
Yeah, I would say that's fairly true.
I mean, this movie inspired a lot of things to happen. Not only other people's performances, but the other movies that came after it, like Troy, Alexander, King Arthur, Robin Hood. You know, these movies that are all mostly bad, other than Troy.
Bunch of really bad movies.
Yeah.
Exodus, Gods and Kings,
I'm
Alexander.
watch King Arthur.
See, I love Troy, so I mean, there's people that Kingdom of Heaven is another one.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of high quality movies.
I mean, this movie was revolutionary.
Yeah, agreed. And it changed the genre. As they said, this was like, it's often credited as the thing that brought back the sword and the sandal genre.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how this movie got made. People involved, writers, directors, producers, blah, blah, blah. So this is an interesting one because
This movie was rewritten a lot.
and the people involved in this movie are...
Was it even written?
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't
This movie is more like the group of people that you would be involved in, like...
Independence Day.
Or like a
this
Michael
reminded
Bay
me
movie.
of the beginning when we talked about Independence Day. And what was the other movie that was just storyboards? Mad Max.
Right.
But that was different because George Miller doing storyboards is very different than David Franzoni.
So David Franzoni, let's start with the writer.
Yes.
Let's start with the writer who originally pitched the idea, okay? So this is a guy who, based on the success of Amistad, the period piece from 1997, and the movie that helped put DreamWorks on the map, was given a 3-picture deal. Now, this was the first movie in his 3-picture deal. And you'd think, hats off, man.
Great start.
You won the
Yeah,
Oscar. You wrote all this great dialogue, and like you had this great script. So he went on after this to make King Arthur in 2004, a huge flop,
Yep.
and a huge turd. And he was the sole writer on it, by the way.
And then he got his deal pulled, it
He
seems.
didn't get his 3rd movie.
No.
Or if he is supposed to, it's still in the works. But, I mean, he switched agencies recently. Like, he's working on period piece TV development stuff. Like, for all intents and purposes, Franzoni's not a good writer.
He's not. And when you go through and you do the research on this film, this what you see on the film in the movie is not what he wrote.
No, they went into production with 30 pages written.
Yeah.
And they kept rewriting the script on set constantly.
Yeah, and people like Richard Harris, he was like, I'm not even going to look at the new lines. I can't be bothered to memorize new lines. I'm sticking with the original ones.
And actors and like Russell Crowe were insulting the writers. It feels like luck. And I thought about this because when you do research it just seems like there was so much fighting on set between the creatives and the talent. If this was happening now,
Right.
with all of the bad word of mouth just on the making of, people wouldn't see this movie
No.
just on like principle of
They'd be like, why do I want-
Fantastic
yeah.
Four drama.
Right.
Like it impacts box office numbers now, and this has all been hidden, and everyone just looks at this movie as a golden trophy.
A freaking classic.
And,
Yeah.
But it's like, no.
I mean, what's
how
his-
this was made was messy and
Yeah.
dramatic,
Ugly.
and people were unhappy on set.
What was
Right.
his direct quote? He's like, your writing is garbage, but I'm the greatest actor of all time. I can make anything sound good.
I think I'm the best actor in the world, so I can
Yeah.
make any lines work.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's what Crowe said probably one of the many times before he stormed off set, angry.
Absolutely.
Because he was like, he signed on to the movie because he's like, I want to work with Ridley Scott.
It's a $100 million period.
Sounds like a sweet character, shows up, and then he's like, I read stuff where he would go on set some days and would be so frustrated because they were supposed to shoot a scene and he didn't have lines. Like, he didn't actually have lines to say. They were like, well, this is what we're gonna do in the scene. Setups are gonna take all day, and then you'll say some stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll swing a sword. And what would you say in that moment? Like, that's the kind of stuff that was happening.
Which is the testament to how great these actors are. Like, Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe have so many improvised lines in this, and one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is when he's sitting there talking to Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there in his tent. He's like, "Tell me about your home."
Yeah.
That whole thing is improvised based off of where he grew up in Australia.
Yeah, it's his
Talking
real
about
house.
the farm and the soil and the trees. You're like, God, this is like, I feel like I'm there.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that wasn't written. He made that up. He really was the greatest actor in the world at the time.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis was sleeping probably.
Yeah. What, in 2000? This
Yeah,
was
he
like
was off the map right then.
This was his hiatus, his first
Yeah.
one between The Boxer and Gangs of New York,
Yeah.
when he disappeared for like 6 years.
God, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's the man. D-Day-Lou. Classic. So David Franzoni, we don't need to, I mean, he's credited as writing Gladiator.
We're not going to talk about him because he didn't write all of the lines that we're talking about.
And who knows, like, I mean, you know, obviously we weren't there, so we don't know how many of the on-set rewrites he was a part of. I mean, maybe there's more that he was involved in.
I mean, he at least gave the outline for one of the greatest movies of all time.
Exactly.
So we'll give him some credit.
So the movie was produced by Douglas Wick, Walter F. Parks, Bronco Lustig, Laurie McDonald, and about 5 other people. And
Including Ridley Scott.
Including Ridley Scott. So we'll talk about a few of them. We try not to spend too much time just like, I mean, going off on tangents about producers because for the most part you go off credits and what you read about them. We don't know that much
if you
about
really
these guys.
wanted, you could go on your own Wikipedia tangent and figure out everything about all these guys.
Yeah, so basically the movie was originally pitched by Parks and Wick to Scott, and it was off of this painting, which is called Thumbs Down, and we have a picture of it here we can show you guys. And that's essentially what the whole, like, the intrigue for the movie was this painting.
Absolutely.
So we want to pitch this self-contained story that's loosely based on history, but has a bunch of new characters written, and it's just the tone they wanted to show. And Ridley Scott really liked it. He didn't want to do the classic sword and the sandal cliches of, eating grapes and drinking from goblets.
Wine, yeah.
He wanted something a little more violent, something a little bit more accurate. And so they went into production on the film based basically on the pitch and this painting.
Yeah.
They succeeded. It looks like Titus.
Yeah, right?
It's awesome. It's fantastic.
It is. I mean, and that's one of those things that we find out when we talk about movies that get made and how they get made. It's like the slightest spark of inspiration can come from answering a question about another movie, looking at a painting, a passing by conversation, and there you go. That's what sparked Gladiator.
So, just more proof that this movie is much closer to a 90s big budget action movie than it is an Oscar winner. Aside from Ridley Scott, who, for the record, is a genius, and you can't say that anything Ridley Scott touches has a chance of being absolute solid gold. I mean, 2 of his first 3 movies, Alien and Blade Runner, are considered to be 2 or 3 of the greatest and most influential 25 movies ever made. They're at the pinnacles of their 2 genres.
I was going to say, he's a genre maker, too. He doesn't just stick to one niche. He makes movies that are at the top of their individual genres.
Yeah, so he's a visionary. So if Ridley Scott's involved, it's not his fault that this movie is what it is. I mean, it is and it isn't.
Right.
The other guys involved, though, Douglas Wick and Walter F. Parks, the movies that they worked on in the 90s, aside from Amistad, were movies like Twister and Men in Black. Those are the kind of movies that you were going off of. You have Branko Lustig, who had worked on Sophie's Choice and Schindler's List, so he's kind of like the Oscar pedigree that comes in to work on this movie. But for the most part, you're dealing with guys that weren't Oscar guys.
No.
They were action guys. And they pitched this movie to be...
They were just people that just wanted to make movies,
Yeah.
you know?
This is a $100 million movie that went into production with a ton of sets in 3 different countries and 30 pages of script.
Yeah.
And it won Best Picture. What?
I know,
It was a
man.
magic combination.
It's one of those things. It's somehow everything fell into place perfectly with this movie. And it's a lot of it's to do with the actors and the quality of the... I mean, you have Richard Harris...
Yeah.
You got Crowe, you got Phoenix, you got Nielsen. Is that how you say her last name?
Which one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then, Oliver Reed.
Yeah, Oliver Reed.
These are incredibly successful, classically trained actors.
Yeah, Reed was it's crazy to think that Reed, so I think it's fairly infamous at this point that he died during filming. That CGI had replaced a solid minute or 2 of his scenes. But he was a guy who was famous from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And really the stuff that he had done in the 10 or 15 years before this film, a lot of B-movie stuff and stuff that doesn't stand out. But he was in the original 3 Musketeers franchise. He showed up in the sequel to The Sting 2.
I did not know that.
But he was already elderly at the time they made the movie. And that was 15 years ago. And he died during filming. So it's weird to think that Oliver Reed as an actor in his career is 30, 40 years old.
Yeah.
Most people watching this probably have no concept. I really didn't have much of a concept.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those old school actors.
Yeah, unless you guys are huge fans of Oliver Reed, call me out.
Let us know.
Yeah, but
the dude, he died of a heart attack, and please do not take this the wrong way, but he was a hothead. He was always angry. He was always getting in fights. You can't do that to your body forever, man. He didn't even audition for roles anymore, but he reluctantly auditioned for this one because
he got kind of pulled onto this by other people, and they rushed certain filming because they did know about his health issues. And then on set, he was even trying to fight someone. Didn't he try and fight Russell Crowe?
Yeah, they immediately hated each other.
Can you imagine a rather old gentleman who they're rushing filming because of your health,
right?
Then being the person who's inciting fights.
You. Yeah.
And Russell Crowe, isn't he kind of notorious for being a little bit of a hothead too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at this point he was a little more calm because he wasn't Russell Crowe yet.
Yeah.
Because I know that happens a lot to people once they start to hit success.
Yeah. Right.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, classic. Classic. So we mentioned Ridley Scott just a little bit, but we can talk about him a little further. So Sir Ridley Scott, by the way, was knighted in 2003 for his work and contribution in British film by Queen Elizabeth II. And he is a guy that, to say that Ridley Scott is anything other than... he's probably one.
Hi, Steven.
Hi, Steven. He's probably one of the 20 greatest directors of all time.
Yeah, he definitely
right?
is.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
if
is
you've
the best.
made Alien and Blade Runner and Gladiator, there's
Yeah.
no contest. There's nothing that anyone can say. I mean, yeah, everyone makes bad movies.
Right.
I would give him, yes, top 20, maybe even like top 15.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of obviously very visionary directors.
Yeah.
It's just when you sort of think about, like, we'll talk just a little bit about a couple of these, like the important ones, right? Like, Alien was his second movie, I believe. I think The Duelists, or if it wasn't his second, it was very early on in 1979. Alien, not only is it responsible for the creation of an entire franchise, but it's referenced by many people often as the scariest movie of all time. It, even by today's standards, is like it's a thing of legend. And then 3 years later, you go and make the movie that is even, I would say in some cases, more important to its own genre. Blade Runner is
Well, to its genre, absolutely.
pretty much the most famous science fiction film ever made.
Right.
Like, it's the most iconic. It's the beginning of a genre. People never stop referencing Blade Runner. And there's even, by the way, a sequel to Blade Runner that's still in the works, but where Harrison Ford would reprise his role. Interestingly enough.
Where's my family?
We're home, Chewie. Wrong movie, bud.
Wrong movie of both of those.
But when those are your first two movies, right? So then, like the 80s, he has a couple movies that aren't so good here and there. But then he comes back with Thelma and Louise, which
absolutely.
is huge, right? Super iconic.
Also, but looking at the trajectory of his career and what he was coming out with, maybe it was just the time he was in, but so many times now when we do see a director that puts a movie at the forefront of its genre, they get pigeonholed into that genre.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether it's by
absolutely.
the studio system or their own accord, that's what they become known for.
Right.
They make connections in that area, they expand, and that's where they're getting money.
Yeah.
He did not back into that corner and really did try and target by going from Blade Runner to Thelma and Louise. Like,
Yeah.
that takes bravery, in my
massive jump,
opinion.
yeah.
And also, like, he obviously wanted some sort of new inspiration, but his prowess, like how he interacts with females, males, aliens, everything. He does a great job.
Black Hawk Down, like that was kind of, again, that was around that same time where war epics became massive.
And Black Hawk Down changed the way those movies were done. I mean, that movie gets referenced all the time nowadays with current war films. But I mean, to call him just a great director doesn't even do justice to the fact that he's as prolific as he is. Because he's a guy, when you look at the scale of the movies that he's making, movies like Kingdom of Heaven or Gladiator, $100 million epics with gigantic sets all over the world.
Massive stars.
He works. Some directors work for 6 years on movies like that.
Right.
He'll work for a year, and he has two movies come out in the same year sometimes.
Yeah.
He'll go from Gladiator to Black Hawk Down to Matchstick Men to. He just goes and he goes and he goes. He's 77 years old. He's about to shoot Prometheus 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the friggin' Prometheus. That movie was enormously epic.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
It wasn't one of my favorites, but it was awesome.
It has its moments.
Absolutely.
The trailer's far better than the movie.
Yes, another one of those sad case for the trailers.
But the only other things that are super, super relevant to discuss with Ridley Scott, I mean, it's like saying the only things that are relevant to talk about with Michael Jordan or something. It's like, you can give the highlights.
You
But
can only talk for so long.
yeah, his brother Tony Scott is a favorite of ours on this show.
Love Tony Scott.
R.I.P. And
Which
he,
Lisa Gerrard also did the music for Man on Fire.
Yes.
She did the music on this was Hans Zimmer.
yeah, and it even has one of the passages.
It's like the same.
It sounds the
Like
same.
verbatim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really funny.
We were like sitting there watching, we're like, wait, where is this from? Like, this is from Gladiator.
Why is the Gladiator music in Man on Fire? Yeah, it totally sounds the same. But as well as being Tony Scott's brother, and who is also a very visual director, so because they both came from commercials. Ridley Scott was a little older, and he had a business going, doing like big budget commercials in the 70s that Tony kind of got on board with, and they started a company called Scott Free back in the 90s. They produced a lot of films together. But Ridley Scott directed this Apple ad in 1984 that I thought was really interesting, that I went and watched. And it's a direct homage to the film 1984, to like the story of the dystopian. And it's like this woman, I think she was an athlete. She's running with a hammer towards like a bunch of like, drone looking people looking at like a Wizard of Oz type of screen. And she like throws the hammer and it explodes, and it's like, Apple is coming, what it will introduce in 1984.
And that commercial is a really big deal.
Huge.
I mean, we know Apple today, but back then, for that market, those commercials were groundbreaking.
Showed during the
almost
Super Bowl.
$1 million commercial.
In
Just to make-
1984.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
bigger than a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I
mean, yeah, but so back then, like, that was, he even made an enormous impact. I mean, it's like a watershed moment in advertising is what you read, and he was making an impact in advertising, and that's 2 years after Blade Runner. Like, The guy's just, it's nuts.
Who made this commercial? You know that movie Blade Runner? Yeah, that guy did.
That guy just made the commercial that you just watched in the Super Bowl that blew everyone's minds.
Absolutely.
That's it's like a minute 42 seconds or something.
Christopher
like that.
Nolan directed a Super Bowl commercial this year.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all.
Happen.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. So yeah, you that's sort of the people involved in this movie, writer, directors, producers, and whatnot. Ridley, Bronco Lustig, very relevant. The rest of them, they've all. I mean, a lot of them have had big careers since. You have I want to say it's Parks, or one of them is working on the Divergent franchise.
But the writer, you go and talk about Franzoni, and his career is literally he
didn't do much.
Yeah,
there's 4 or 5 other producers that no disrespect, we just don't have the time to delve into everybody. You want to talk production notes a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about production notes.
This was your section. You did a little bit of the reading here.
I did a little bit of the reading on this. One thing that was super cool about this film is that all the costumes and the set pieces were made by the crew.
There were so many costumes.
Much.
It's like 500 plus, right?
Yeah.
Huge number of costumes.
And because
There's
they couldn't find them
thousands.
anywhere.
Yeah.
They couldn't find them anywhere, and it was way too expensive. And then, the armor, they made over 27,000 pieces of armor for this film. It's kind of like when we watched Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
This was real armor.
Yes.
This was a little different, but it was made by Rod Vass and his company Armordillo, where they
It's a clever name.
Yes, yeah, where they revolutionized making armor for films for this film. So that's why it feels so real, and that's why it's got nominated for costume design. Did it win? I think it might have won for costume.
Might have. I'm not sure. We should have that.
We should know these things. And like you talked about earlier, it was shot in 3 different locations. The opening battle was in the one that was filmed in Germania. It was shot in Bourne Woods near Surrey in England, which they found out. Ridley Scott found out that they were gonna get rid of. They were gonna go deforest this whole thing. They were getting rid of it anyway. So he's like, "How about you guys let me take care of that?" And they just burned the thing.
We'll just burn
ground.
the forest down.
Yeah.
He was really smart about how he used his locations and his sets. On top of, yes, he did get a place that was already going to be deforested, but England has really harsh restrictions, or at the time had really harsh restrictions on animals.
Absolutely.
So things like the dog hell was supposed to be a wolf. They had to change that. They used a zoo's animals.
Yeah, when they were in Morocco.
From Morocco, so they didn't have to deal with imports and exports of these large, dangerous animals. He was very smart about the avenues he took into creating the very real set that we see.
Yeah, I mean, he saw the Colosseum in Rome. He's like, this isn't big enough. This isn't grand enough. We need to make our own.
I thought that was pretty cool. So they only built a third of it.
Yeah.
They built a third of it to scale, 50 feet high, and the rest of it's CG. But all the scenes where you have to have a backdrop, and they would rotate and they'd shoot with the third of the Colosseum.
It's like what they do in theater when you have those tri-sets where you just rotate it and it's another room, it's another room, it's another room. So it's the same type of thing. And they built that first Colosseum that he fought in out of mud and brick. This was a real Colosseum that they built, just like they would back in the day.
It's insane.
Did you know that they offered the sets to be the basis of a theme park?
Really?
They offered the sets to be a basis of a theme park, but they were shut down because they were like, "Well, we have these sets.
Come in here and fight tigers."
A theme park," and they said no.
So let's talk just a little bit before we move on to critical and box office about what you just mentioned, some of the franchising that was going on with this movie. One of the arguments that I made when we talked about not doing this film was that I thought, because I was thinking long and hard about reasons to disqualify this movie.
Ben and I, for you audience, we have been debating whether or not to do this movie for a couple months, and there's been strong arguments on both sides.
Arguments,
very heated,
storming out of the room.
All right, it was a good day, Ben. I'll see you tomorrow. Like me just storming off angrily.
Very.
When we went through and did the research for this film, and we've talked about with the writing and all that, and more things, like the sequel, because earlier in the day he was like, this movie could never be sequeled or franchised, and I was like, that's a good argument. Because
my argument was that if you think about a lot of the movies we would do on the show, there are movies that you could remake or you could make a sequel, and in theory, even a movie as classic as say The Rock, which is one of my favorites. You could remake The Rock. You could remake Con Air. I mean, people might argue, but it hasn't been that long.
Point Break, they're doing it right now. Absolutely.
And movies like Terminator, that's part of a franchise. So when sequels happen, if it's franchised, you can just keep making them. In my mind, I was like, you'd never see Gladiator 2. You'd never see, and I was like, you would exactly.
But wait, there's more.
And they wouldn't remake it. It won Best Picture. How are you gonna remake Gladiator? I mean, maybe 50 years from now, and we looked up, and it turns out during production there was a sequel and a prequel, both in the works.
Which is funny because the prequel got scrapped immediately. It got scrapped within a year after this movie came out. And that was the one with the most like real premise. It was like, we'll go back before this all happened and follow Maximus and his journey to becoming general. They're like, nah, that's stupid. I got a better idea. The sequel is absurd.
So basically the sequel, I believe written by Franzoni, and not
Genius.
approved, was that Maximus gets resurrected by the Greek gods, and then has to fight and gets transported by like some sort of magic to World War II to fight Hitler, to Vietnam, and then to the modern day Pentagon, where he's like supposed to save
Decimus Meridius. I want some coffee.
Yeah, like what? And so they were like, "This is not believable. We can't do this. This is not going to happen."
The best thing is that Crowe, it was Crowe and Franzoni that were like, oh no, it was Crowe and Wick.
Yeah.
They were like, we're gonna do this. This is a good idea.
This is a good idea, guys. Yeah.
So that didn't happen.
Anyway, the fact that I mean, it was never made, but the fact that that was in production just is even more proof that the people involved in this movie were like, no, this.
Yeah.
It won an Oscar. We'll just keep going. Let's keep the gravy train going.
Rolling, yeah.
We can do it.
Another interesting thing about production is that it cost the studio $3.2 million to CG and body double and reshoot scenes that had Oliver Reed in them.
Yeah.
Because originally they had Oliver Reed and Proximo and Maximus fighting.
Yeah.
Like they were supposed to duke it out. And I think instead of the Tigress of Gaul, it was supposed to be Proximo. They ended up rewriting that because he died, obviously. And then at the end, it was Proximo that was actually the one burying the dolls, not Djimon Hounsou. I like the way that it turned out. It would have been interesting to see the other way, especially because that relationship between the two and the fact that Proximo is one of the greatest gladiators of all time.
Right.
He's one of the only ones that ever gets freed. One of my favorite lines when he's like, "You knew Marcus Aurelius." He's like, "I did not say I knew him. I said he touched me on the shoulder once."
Such a great
Jesus, all right, calm down, dude, calm down.
I love that reaction. It's the best reaction.
It was interesting reading about it. There was an insurance policy in production that they were insured for up to $25 million to reshoot all the scenes with Reed. But everybody was so frustrated and tired with the movie already that they were like, nah, we'll just CG and rewrite it. We don't want to have to pull everybody back in. Because they had to recast it. They would have had to reshoot every scene he was in.
And that company that did the CG for that also did the CG with the tigers. The CG in the beginning with like the smoke and the arrows and the pots, and then also they turned what was 4,000 people into 35,000 people by shooting them at different angles inside the Coliseum so that they could make this massive audience.
And for being made 15 years ago, I would say this is one of the movies that for me, the CG really does hold up.
It does.
It does. There's only that one moment, and even when you saw it in 2000 for the first time, is when they first pull up to the Coliseum, and it's a very CG, like the fires, the flames. It looks a lot like the very beginning of Gangs of New York. Yeah. When they like zoom out, and it's like this massive like group of people. Yeah. But other than that, the CG is phenomenal in this. It really is done very well, and it's subtle.
Good. Yeah, I would agree. Let's talk about how this movie was received critically. Obviously, it won Best Picture, won Best Actor.
People loved it.
Yes, people loved it.
Didn't win Best Director, though.
It didn't, and that's one of those things that we were talking about is when a film wins. I mean, because that hadn't happened in a long time. That was somewhere in the
somewhere in like the 50s.
It was like the 60s or 50s was the last time.
The last time was like All the King's Men.
Yeah, where
they remade with Sean
a movie
Penn.
that won Best Actor and Film did not win Best Director.
Yeah.
So. Again, it's a testament to why we're doing it on the show. This movie was not supposed to be what it was.
No, it was a big commercial piece of crap that turned out to be awesome.
You watch your words. Bite your tongue.
So yeah, DreamWorks was the studio. Obviously, this was another film that helped really put them on the map, which is funny that if you think about DreamWorks in 2000, up against Pixar in 2000.
Right.
And then like a few years later, as Pixar was just blockbuster after blockbuster, the DreamWorks really started to like move into their own
animated.
And find a lot of success there. But $103 million, opened just before summer in May of 2000. Domestic $187 million, which is obviously strong.
Made it. I think they said that it made all of its money back within the first 2 weeks or something. Yeah.
Though what's really funny is that trailer did not look like a $100 million movie.
I don't know. The trailer's pretty good.
We were really excited.
$30 million movie.
Excited by that.
The trailer was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Worldwide, another $269 to bring it to a total of $457 million. And we do have Ridley Scott's career-adjusted totals. We'll get to the highest-grossing film of 2000 in a second here. But it is interesting if you look at how much money this movie made compared to everything else he ever did.
Right.
And if you look at the adjusted numbers, this is still his number one film of all time.
Yeah, even though we've got the other graphic up right now. But yeah, Ridley Scott, the fact that this is his number one movie of all time, and you think of all the movies he's made. I mean, Alien is number 2.
Yeah.
When it adjusted.
Yep.
So Gladiator's better than Alien?
I guess, yeah.
I'll say it.
Here you go. Yeah, Hannibal, American
Yeah.
Gangster, Black Hawk, Prometheus, Robin Hood, Black
look
Rain.
at that. Black Rain. Other than that,
Black Rain's actually kinda sweet.
It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. But look at that. Look at this guy. Look at what he does and the amount of money he makes and the success of these films.
Yeah.
American Gangster was kind of a letdown for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that movie.
No, it wasn't super great.
A lot of people love that movie, though.
Yeah.
So I do think that's pretty interesting, and that this is the pinnacle. This is the pinnacle in a lot of ways of his
And
career.
it should be, so I'm happy.
Yeah, and you made this discussion that we talked about. We're going to have this on the show this week. What is Ridley Scott's greatest movie? Is it Gladiator? Is it Alien? Or is it Blade Runner? And they all do different things for different genres. This movie won Best Picture, Best Actor, and
I mean, I think that if you're gonna really go with the conversation of greatest versus favorite, this is not in the same conversation as the other two movies. This is a great movie that won Oscars, that is exceptionally popular. It's never even
1000, which there's a lot of other good. I mean, Scary Movie. First of all, I know it sounds like a joke, but that movie is massively successful, and so is the franchise. And I remember after the first one was made, the Wayans brothers were like, "I'm not doing this anymore. We're not going to make this a franchise. We're not going to do this movie again." And the producer of Miramax, one of the owners, came up to their house himself with $100 million check. It's like, if you guys write this movie, this is yours. And they're like, okay.
The second Scary
we'll
Movie?
do another one. Yeah. I mean, the first one was massively successful. It did not cost anything to make. It was very cheap. And it made that much money. And then you got Aaron Brockovich, Traffic, The Patriot. Like, this was a great year for
good year for movies.
But what Gladiator has is it does hit more demographics.
Definitely. Yeah.
Completely.
Massively popular.
This is what people made exceptions for their family members to see.
Absolutely.
Already movies. It got every age demo, like male, female, just everyone needed to see it.
Yeah. I saw this at a 5th grade sleepover with like 4 of my best buddies, and we were all just blown away by it.
Yeah, that was really cool myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, critical, IMDb 8.5. It's somewhere in the 40s of the
Number
top
46
250.
on the top 250, one of Ben's favorite lists out there on the internet.
Do you like that list, Sara Stretton? Do you think that the top 250 on IMDb is a real thing?
We have a really good thing going right now, Sarah. Don't ruin this.
I am not a huge fan of IMDb lists in general.
Yeah, I would agree.
When you because like they have a lot. They have like top actors in their 30s, top actors of all time, and I think that about 70% of what they say is accurate. So is their 250 list my 250 list? No.
But 70% of it would be on the same?
Probably about there.
Yeah.
My argument was that it's accurate up to 80%, but the order is erroneous. But if you swapped out 20% of the movies on that list, then I think it would be accurate.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I couldn't tell you exactly.
See, and I meant like 70%.
Yeah.
It's like they're fine.
I agree. But I do think that that's the best top 250 list.
So
out
by
there.
both accounts, you're wrong. It's got 76%, 70, and 87% for the all critics, top critics, and audience ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. 87% makes sense from the audience.
Totally.
That would reflect its popularity. The top critics giving it 70% reflects sort of my opinion. And then I think
Which is interesting because Ebert originally, I wish we could have found his, he did not like this movie, which is weird because he likes movies like this.
Yeah.
And especially of this quality. Like, it seems like it'd be totally up his alley. So I wish I could find his review to see what he had to say negatively about it.
Yeah, we have a couple reviews here that we can we'll reference. Then we got to get rolling on the show because we're running a little short on time when I get to all of the interactive stuff here.
Fun stuff.
I want to take these.
Yeah, sure. So Colin Covert of the Minneapolis Star Tribune wrote that Gladiator is a triumph. On the surface, it's a terrific yarn with strong, rounded characters, agonizing suspense, and visceral thrills. Look closely and you'll find a rich historical themes and a harrowing critique of violence as amusement.
What an interesting way to sum up this movie.
Yeah. Right? Like, that sums up this movie perfectly. And it's... Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with the dude.
And the negative review...
Why don't you take that one, Ben?
Should we even mention David Denby?
David Denby. You're David Dead to me.
Nice. Whammy.
Ridley Scott thrusts us so close to the combat that all we see is a lot of whirling and thrashing. A sword thrust here and there, a spurt of blood, limb severed. There's hardly a scene that is cleanly and coherently staged in open space. That is interesting.
And that's why we pulled this, is because when we were talking about the opening scene, that was your biggest argument with it.
Yeah, and some of that actually has to do with the exposure rate, the frame rate, because
they went
way long filming it. So some of those like blurred, weird, grainy looking scenes are intentional, and it's to make up for the fact they ran out of time. But
yeah, wasn't it also to cover some of their lighting issues?
Absolutely, yeah. The
exactly.
lighting for they running out of time because it was nighttime. The light was just not right, so they would slow down their frame rate and they'd put the same frame in like several times.
Yeah.
So that's why we got that gritty, slow motion, like
And I think
feel.
it's the same argument that we kind of made about several other action films or action-y movies around the same time. Bourne Identity, Batman Begins. A lot of the action in those movies within those same years, it's very like
It feels fake.
it's too close.
Sometimes,
You
yeah.
can't really see the movements. Nowadays, I think it seems to be that there's much more of a focus in films on really wide shots showing us the action.
Right.
Tightly choreographed.
Yes, exactly.
And it's not quite as loose. And I think that a lot of the stuff in the battle at the beginning is a little too close.
Even though that's still one of my greatest, like my favorite battle scenes of all time.
Yeah.
It doesn't compare to those in Lord of the Rings.
No, or
You know what I
even
mean?
just like Game of Thrones does it
Right.
better.
Yeah, but it's also like time and things that develop and technology
Yeah,
and
Absolutely.
I'm personally very happy about the nature that they filmed this in, the style, the lighting, the blur, because I think that's part of the timelessness to it for me.
Yeah.
Like there's still a believability attached.
Right, because imagine if they would have tried to force it to make it look
Yeah.
cooler, and then it just looks like shit 15 years later.
I didn't watch it and it didn't strike me as that this is bad. It just
Right.
was like, I can see that this is developed since.
If this, then this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So speaking of that scene, what do you guys think is the ultimate action scene in this movie? I mean, what is the one that really stands out to you? You know, what we're going to show here, what we talk about at the final scene, the fight scene between Commodus and Maximus, which is probably not the one that I think is the ultimate action scene, but
Right.
probably the one that is my favorite.
I think there's a few.
It has the best action moment.
Yeah.
You talking about the opening? Or no, you're talking about the end. Okay.
The ending
gotcha.
scene is the best action moment. As a full action scene, I don't think I'd give it to that.
No.
Yeah.
I would give it, for me, I was thinking about what do I automatically remember? Like, what is the action that I can visualize
Yeah.
accurately? And that goes to the chariot scene.
Yep, the Battle of Carthage.
Like, that is what I see. I always remember the battle in the beginning, and I always am exhilarated by it, but
Yeah.
I can't picture it running in my mind.
Right.
When I think of Gladiator, I can see the woman getting sliced in half.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see the pillars forming. I can see all of the formations.
Yeah.
It just has stuck with me for so long.
It hits every note that you want out of a great action scene.
The Battle
You
of
got-
Carthage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the suspense. You've got, the big dude gets shot in the leg and Maximus saves him.
Yeah.
He gets on the horse. He twirls the sword. And I love that. That's like one of the only moments of comedy in this movie is when Maximus does that. And you're sitting there watching. You're like, ooh. It's like, then it cuts to Commodus. Ooh. Like
Yeah.
making fun of him. But it's the same thing. It's got the chariots, the battle, that they all come together. And it's got in the beginning, he's like, did any of you serve? He's like, I served with you in Vindobona.
Yeah.
And so he takes over. He immediately reclaims this general position that you
Right.
want to see. What about you? Did you think there's a more true action scene?
It's
The other one that's super awesome is when he fights like the 6 guys at once
Yeah.
in the Coliseum.
Yeah.
But that's just like Russell Crowe's a badass.
That's the
Also,
beginning.
a really good moment is it's not as much of an action scene, but the pace of it is
Yeah.
when he is escaping or when Proximo is letting him go.
Right.
The pace of that scene.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
It's fast. It's fast moving. There's the escape routes. Like you are gearing up for both a fight, but watching your main hero escape.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's always an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, unrelated to the ultimate action scene, something that we were talking about when watching this is that even now, and I've seen this movie 12 or 15 times over the years, probably like
That's it?
Yeah,
That is true. I watched that. Yeah. wow.
yeah, I've seen it a lot of times, but I mean, I remember seeing it as a kid and thinking that the whole time having hope that he was going to get out of it and that he was going to make it.
Right.
And even this time watching it, though, I was sort of like, every time one of those things would happen where it's like, you're going to get out still, you're going to get out. They've taken Graxus, but I'm going to get you out, Gracchus. And even though I know it's not going to work out, you're still kind of hopeful.
Yeah,
and
you
then,
forget how suspenseful this movie really is.
Yeah, and at the end, in the last moment when he's dying, you're like, no, save him. You're like, save him. Don't let him die. What are
Yeah.
you doing? He's come so far. How can he die now?
Which is interesting. Did you read that the original Commodus, the true Caesar Commodus, he was known as the Gladiator Emperor, and he would constantly go in and battle in the arena, and people loved him for it in the beginning. But
Yeah.
then he started charging outlandish rates to go into there, and then he'd get like cripples and people with missing limbs and tie them together and just like club them to death.
Jeez.
But what you found out later on through historians is that when Commodus would go in the ring, unbeknownst to him, his guards would do exactly what he did to Maximus at the end of this film. They would stab them in the back and cover up their wound so that they were weak when fighting the Emperor.
Right.
Which is an awesome, awesome call to in this film when he does it, which is also one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
When he stabs him?
just that interaction they
Yeah.
have. He's like, you love my father, but I loved him too.
Yeah.
Things like that. So smile with me now, brother. Like all these things. Like it's such a great scene.
It is. Yeah, we'll cue it up here while we're chatting, but it.
Yeah, let's get that fight going.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's another one of those moments where like there's all these things that have happened in the movie that are calls to the action movie genre, and one of them is obviously early when the guy tries to wake him up, and he wakes up and he's got the knife. Yeah, total action movie hero, like action hero moment, right?
Yeah, never sleeps, never really asleep.
Even in this battle, like, so I was like, it's classic, like a action movie villain. He's naive because he's not like a badass really. So he's never been in like an adrenaline battle where he would actually. He's like, oh, I'll stab you and you'll die. It's like, no. Actually, he's the general, and if you're trying to kill him, he's gonna kill you. It doesn't matter if he's bleeding; he'll just get through the pain and kill you still. Yeah. But what I love is that when the sword goes down, and he says my favorite line, he's points a sword and he brings out the dagger. It's like such a little bitch.
Yeah,
mode.
it's such a little like shiny like emperor dagger.
But he doesn't beat him with a sword or a knife. He does it in true '90s action movie status, but just punching him a bunch of times.
Yeah.
That's like what Harrison Ford does in Air Force One.
Strength. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like punch you again, knee to the face.
It's funny. I had this this vivid memory of when I used to play football. I did the same thing that he would do because I love this movie so much. Before games, I would pick up dirt in my hand. I always thought it was so cool.
It's just there's so many parts of this scene that are over the top. It's like they're in a bed of roses. He is wearing full white.
Yeah.
When you get to the point like this, the sound dynamic is changed from almost the entire rest of the film when you're in the arena. Like the audience is pretty much muted. Like they're not loud. When you get into the actual stabbing, like there's a lot of silence in this scene, and it's just like.
When he kills him and then it just goes dead silent. It's actually very effective.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Very
just the
effective.
cinematography through this and everything. It is a great scene.
Yeah, I mean, one of the behind the scenes featurettes I was watching, Crow's talking. He's like, I mean, yeah, so awesome.
Sword, give me a sword.
Sheathe your swords. It's awesome.
Sword, give me a sword.
Oh, just said no.
I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, one of the things I was going to say is that it's funny. Crow's talking and he's like, I mean, the amount of time it takes to film the number of action sequences. He's like, this one camera and there's 80 moves in this sequence. I do all 80 moves and then we do it again with another setup.
Right.
It's crazy. Like it goes so fast, but I mean, filming something like this takes a long time.
It's funny. Like you can see a little bit of Tony Scott pulling from his brother in these films, and that slow down. That I love it. He just beats him up. Just straight up brute strength.
Yeah. That's Harrison Ford right there.
That's right. Dislocates his arm.
And then the knee to the face. That's my other fist pump moment. Yeah, the knee to the face
is great.
Let's get into favorite lines, hero villain rankings, and recast before we run out of time here, guys.
All right.
So favorite line. I mean, this feels to me like we're doing Independence Day again. And it's the Bill Pullman speech. Like, I'm Maximus Decimus Meridius,
Commander of the Armies of the North, General of Felix Legions. Like, everyone knows that.
Husband to a murdered wife,
Also,
father to a murdered son.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained is great. What we do in life echoes through eternity is great.
Little bee, busy little bee.
Busy little bees.
I hate that line.
Really?
It's because of the way he does it.
I love it.
That was one of the ones that I remember watching as a kid.
Love it.
But it's so good.
It is.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely the monologue. It's
Shadows and Dust.
Yeah,
that's another good one.
Awesome.
So I mean, this whole movie is just filled with favorite line and fist pump moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So, by the way, guys, share your favorite lines and your hero villain ranking and your recast with us. Your recasts are very often the most fun thing in the comments, and you will often come up with people that we just completely forget.
Yeah.
So
you guys are better at it than we are. We've come to terms with it.
Well, there's like a group of them, and they get more time to marinate. We're doing it live.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, it's excuses.
Yeah, it's excuses. We prepped the show for a week. So yeah, where do the hero and villain rank all time? And I'll tell you right now.
Ooh.
Maximus Decimus Meridius is the greatest action hero of all time.
It's so unfair.
Wow.
He does everything for his murdered wife and son. He's a gladiator. He's a general of one of the greatest armies of all time. He kills the bad guy himself by shoving a dagger through his throat, and then he dies. It's like comparable is definitely Braveheart. Very close. The same type of guy. Maximus is better.
I will give hero top 7.
Top 7.
Wow.
Top 7. I love him for all the reasons you just said. I just sometimes there's a difference between saving Rome and saving the world, and sometimes I do have to give my hero cards to saving the world or saving the galaxy.
He did save the world because he killed the worst Caesar of all time.
No, it doesn't. The stakes. I love his stakes. I love that this is a hero that's driven by a little bit of a darkness and revenge, and he like ends up doing well for Rome.
Right.
But that's not why he sets on this journey. But there are other heroes that do make my top 7 who, they save planets from exploding or whatnot.
Okay.
So for me, this is my one gripe still with this movie, is that I don't think it's fair to include these characters on the same list that we put the other ones on. It feels unfair to me to put Rambo, First Blood Part 2 Rambo, and Dutch from Predator in the same conversation as Maximus Decimus Meridius. It's just not fair.
Get his name right,
Yeah,
or I will
sir.
fight you.
Like, not to say that, because if you're going to go by that, like, I guess if this guy qualifies, there's a lot of characters that we disregard that are, like, you sort of have to start to fringe in and say...
Such as?
Well, like, we've said that we probably won't ever do an Indiana Jones movie on this show. It feels too adventure-y. But if you're going to do this and you're going to step outside of it, I understand that the movie does qualify. I don't argue that.
It does.
But it just doesn't... This is the one part of it that I feel like it's not fair. I feel like you're taking a character...
It's not fair because he's so much better than them. That's why. Because if this movie fits our genre, he's a better hero. And you're exactly saying that right now. You're saying you can't compare him to Dutch. Yeah, you can't, because he's way more of a badass than Dutch. Drop the mic.
He's not even in my top 10.
No, you're so full of shit. You were so full of shit. You told me he's top 3. You're a liar.
I never said that. I never said... All right,
Cut to black.
This is...
Fight
Ben's
begins.
This is one... We promise every week that you guys will eventually get the graphic. I swear to God it's coming. Eventually you'll get it. And when we do it, I'll decide. For now, I'll give him top 3.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Yeah.
I hate it. You don't. He's the greatest, man. And to juxtapose that, it's because the villain is such a
Top 5.
weasel. He's the top 5 villain, absolutely.
It's not an action
Might even be top 3. It's
Top
an action
5
movie.
for
You
sure.
know it is. We sat there, and this movie's 2.5 hours long. Ben was squirming the whole time because he's like, this movie fits. This is exactly our movie. These are exactly our characters.
I hate it.
Embrace
I hate it so much.
Embrace it.
I love it. This is the proudest moment of my life
Doesn't
right now.
this kind of make you happy?
Oh, it makes me so happy. You have no idea. Top 3 for Commodus.
Top 5 for Commodus.
Yeah. No.
He's not even worth talking
He's top
about.
10. I'm not going to say where.
That's fine. I'll take top 10.
He's not as good as Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah, he is.
He's not.
He is. Did Philip get nominated for supporting actor? For
No,
this?
he just won the Oscar the year before.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. That's for Capote. All right, let's move on. Before
I'm going to elect Capote as the
next movie. We're doing Capote next week.
Time to move on. This is Recast, guys. You can let me know if you think Andrew's a fool. I'm sorry. Let me know if you think the Recast is awesome. If you don't agree with it, if you have other ideas. We did list 6 characters, but only 4 were required because obviously it takes quite a bit of time. The 4 are going to be Djimon Hounsou, Connie Nielsen, Joaquin Phoenix, and Russell Crowe.
Which is funny because we did not talk about Djimon Hounsou once throughout this whole entire show, other than like a quick moment.
We can say that he's awesome and beautiful.
That's proof once again in my book that this movie is way closer to a 90s action movie than anything else, because he's an integral character to the story, but he's also completely irrelevant and doesn't. It's not like his performance. It's not like his performance is bad. It's totally reasonable, but I mean the performance of some of the Marines in The Rock are good. The performance of some of the secondary characters in Point Break are good. Like he just doesn't really stand out. This movie comes down to 2 characters and a bunch of action and some sweet lines, and then a bunch of like 90s action trash. That's what it is, and that's why it's awesome, and that's why it's a great movie and why it fits. So, Djimon Hounsou, who do you guys want to start with?
Sorry, I'm just reading.
Are people just talking smack to me?
No, they're just hilarious. I love you. I love you, audience. That's all I'm
really
say.
curious what you guys did, because when recasting this, was like, okay, do I stick to kind of like the age guidelines of the original cast?
That is something that we do try to do a lot.
Yeah, so that is
You can be
what I
creative,
try
though.
to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's starting this?
It sounds like you should.
Sounds like you are.
Yeah.
So I made lots of options, and one of the pairings that I realized, I cast the new Macbeth film coming out, because I cast Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard.
Wow.
as leading people in this.
That's strong.
Yeah,
those are both
Mike
great.
Fassbender and
We use a lot of Fassbender and Hardy on this show. They're like kind of
I mean,
the
we
two
talked
go-tos.
about
That's really funny
Fassbender
because
on
I
the
have
way over
Fassbender
here.
next to Hardy.
Yep.
But I put Fassbender because there's a
for who?
different for Russell Crowe.
Oh, for
You
Maximus.
cast Fassbender as Maximus? What?
No,
Yep.
he's got to be Commodus in that
He's too
state.
small. He's too little.
No, he could do it. I guarantee he has the intellect.
Oh, he has the chops. There's
he
no
has the
doubt.
chops and the
Great
intellect.
actor.
And I believe his physicality.
No, he's
I
definitely
believe his
Joaquin
fighting.
Phoenix if he's anybody.
Joaquin Phoenix is younger. Yes, Commodus has to be 20s.
You guys are both fired.
Commodus in history is 18 when he becomes emperor. He has to be cast by someone in his 20s. And I'm giving it to, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but Ewan Rowan? He plays Ramsay Bolton in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
But you need someone who's young. There's supposed to be a 10-year age gap.
He's got the crazy
You have
eyes.
to believe that Maximus has a kid, a wife, has been a seasoned commander. And you need that juxtaposition. Like, it's hard because Joaquin Phoenix he's a childish character, but he does it with such maturity that you almost think he's older.
It's fair.
But he is supposed to be in his 20s.
Well, why don't you do your full recast, because it sounds like we're jumping around characters, and then you'll do your full and I'll do
Russell Crowe, Mike Fassbender,
Yep.
Joaquin Phoenix, Ewan Rowan, Connie Nielsen, Marion Cotillard.
It's very good.
I still haven't really decided my. Can I skip to Richard Harris and Oliver Reed? Because I
Please,
did them
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, absolutely.
Christopher Plummer,
That's great.
Richard Harris, and Oliver Reed, combined with the Titus character, because that's what
Tigris.
Tigris, thank you. Combined, because that's who originally the character is supposed to be.
Okay.
Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, we love Mickey
that's
Rourke.
great.
We use a lot
That's
of
a
Mickey
very
Rourke
good
in here
That's
too.
a very good
Like,
cast.
It's effective.
Combined because he gets to fight.
Yeah. That's good. I like
Yeah,
it.
and I'm gonna get back to
Djimon.
To your irrelevant supporting character.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
feel
either,
bad
it's either
saying
David
it.
Oyelowo or Jason Mitchell, who just did Easy and Straight Outta Compton.
I mean, it's tough because he's good in this film.
Yeah.
He's not bad in any moment. Are you
No.
just like, Djimon sucks?
It's also like his most famous movie. It's his most memorable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to do yours? You want me to go?
Go ahead.
Oh. Okay. All right. So
Tension.
I'm gonna go with my honorable mentions first.
Okay.
For Richard Harris, I did Ian McKellen.
Okay.
Okay.
For Oliver Reed, I did Brendan Gleeson.
Brendan Gleeson's great.
Okay.
Oh, I almost did Brian Cox, but I think Brendan Gleeson would be better. Which
Yeah.
they're both
Okay.
in Troy, and they both can
Yeah.
fight. But so that's my honorable mentions. For Djimon Hounsou, it's tough because I had Idris Elba originally because I just
Tools.
love him. But I ended up going with Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah.
The guy from Children of Men. Seriously, dude, your name is I can't even begin. I did him. I think he'd be great. I also had Michael B. Jordan because he's younger and that'd be good. But with the age I went with other people, I think it fits. So I did Natalie Portman for Connie Nielsen.
She's great.
I did Oscar Isaac for Joaquin Phoenix, which
Very good.
That's the one I'm
Okay.
most proud of. I think that's phenomenal.
Who's your?
It's Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
It is like
Me too.
You have to have. I know we try to stay away from him on the show now because we use him so much.
Yeah.
But in this role, really, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, if not my favorite. Who do I want to watch do this again? Tom
Hardy would be.
I had Hardy as my second pick. My problem is finding the right dynamic of the three. And with Tom Hardy, I just I don't know about like that three core dynamic between the three of them to believe the kind of ex-love interest that he's the son of I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because it'd be Tom Hardy playing opposite Oscar Isaac, which I can see, but then you have Tom Hardy with Natalie Portman.
Yes.
That's a little off.
That love interest.
I went with Tom Hardy and the other Natalie Portman from Star Wars Episode 1,
Yeah.
Keira Knightley.
Keira Knightley, right?
Because I think she's the correct age at this point.
She's not.
She is.
No.
She's in her 30s now.
She plays young 30s.
She could look.
You believe that I don't believe her yet as like the mother of a 10-year-old who has the capability of being the person who should be running an empire. Like, she doesn't have mom quality to me, and that's a key component to that role. Like, you have to be a mom.
Thinking about Natalie Portman, even though she is a mom now, but her child is much younger, and Keira Knightley. I thought that they might be a little too young But again, with makeup and all that stuff,
It's not about that. It's the maturity. It's the womanhood. Like, this isn't about an ingenue.
Well,
like, this is not a character of an ingenue. They specifically reference in the beginning that she has already been a
through
little
it.
bit of a snake. Like, she has developed beyond that point.
Well, it's a good thing this is my recast, and you've already done yours. I like Keira Knightley a lot. I still have a crush on her. I have since the first Pirates movie, and I think she'd be great. I went with Benedict Cumberbatch for
great.
Yeah, for Joaquin Phoenix. I went with David Oyelowo from Selma for Djimon Hounsou, and I went with Tom Hardy for Russell Crowe. And for exactly the same reasons that you said, like, I try to stay away from it because it's so easy, because he's like so good at just being a badass, but like there's no one that I can think of that has like the masculinity, like the machismo right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's surly, he's rugged, he's filled with hate, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, basically Crow in this movie is so masculine. It's like he's just pure balls, and like Tom Hardy's the only guy I can think of right now that could pull off balls quite to that level right now.
It's like I tell my son to keep his feet up when he's riding his horse.
Yeah.
What do you say to your wife? What I say to my wife? That's none of your business.
Yeah.
Even then, he has like that line of just like, all right, there's the man inside.
Crow's more charming, I think. Hardy hasn't really quite found the charming thing yet. He's a little creepy still.
Tom Hardy's a little bit lone wolf.
Yeah.
He is. But so is Crow. I mean, they're both known for being assholes on set.
Yeah, but Maximus has to also incite inspiration in all of his troops.
True.
Well, I believe in Tom Hardy fully.
I believe in Tom Hardy.
And I skipped Richard Harris and Oliver Reed because I feel like it's never as fun for me to recast the older roles like this, because I often feel like if the actor's still alive, in this case he's not, he could just reprise it, because you pass a certain point where, like, if you're a 60-year-old with white hair and a white beard playing
Just
the character,
jump onto my Mickey
you could be
Rourke
75.
bandwagon.
Yeah, right.
And so I feel like for the most part, I just find myself slotting in the same guys like over and over again for those roles. It's sort of like casting like
I've never
young
been able
kids.
to use Ian McKellen before, so I was just so happy to be able to use it.
That's the only reason you wanted to just recast
the
the
only reason
characters,
I
because you
put
just
it-
wanted to say Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen, Richard Harris, came over.
Yeah, so we're gonna skip Cage versus Cruz this week.
My name's Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North.
Make one from Cassius.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think
The announcer dude.
I think that Cruz.
That's great.
I think
Wig.
Cruz could have played Marcus, or he could have played Mac. That's
Oh,
kidding. No,
could he
he
have?
couldn't. No, he couldn't. That would have been terrible. What's your name? My name's Gladiator.
My name.
My name.
I cringe.
I'm the
I
best.
cringe.
The best gladiator for the job. That'd be hilarious.
We're gonna reshoot this in Ben's basement. Just as I'll be Commodus as Nick Cage, you be Tom Cruise as Russell.
Busy little bees.
Busy little bees. I like honey. All right, what? Let's talk about our categories,
If
man.
we're not all in the same category on this.
It's absurd. You almost don't even need to talk about it. but
There's
we
3
will.
action movie categories, guys. There's totally legitimate, totally ridiculous, and ridiculously legitimate. Totally ridiculous is fall off a cliff of absurdity like Con Air or Face Off. Totally legit is like The Fugitive or
Born Identity.
Born Identity. It's movies that take themselves very seriously and succeed entirely. And then ridiculously legitimate are movies that kind of toe the line, and they're awesome, but you laugh at certain points, and there's a great performance, but they're campy, and they just succeed. They never really lose you. They're compelling the whole way through.
Right. Like
Point Break or The Rock. And I don't even think there's a question. This movie won Best Fucking Picture at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Like,
This should be
It's totally
should be
ridiculous.
your example. This should be your example.
we're never going to speak of this movie again. There's no
I'm
way
going to
it's
talk
going
about
to be
this movie
example.
every single week on the show.
You should reference it as your
I
totally
will.
legitimate.
I'll do the outline and I'll just fill that in right there.
I'll just fill it in.
Just pop it in. Yeah, it's totally legitimate.
legit, yeah.
There's no argument to be made anywhere.
It's entirely legitimate.
There you go.
God, I love this movie so much.
Aren't you so happy?
I'm so happy.
You
Sarah,
got
thank you so much.
78 minutes out of this episode. I hope you're proud of
I'm
yourself.
going to go home and talk to myself.
entertained?
There you go.
One more time, guys, before we sign off. Sarah Stretton doesn't have a Twitter.
Sorry.
Power to you, girl. I hate Twitter.
Google
I like
Sarah
talking to you guys.
Stretton.
I have a hashtag I've heard.
Oh, really? What is it?
Get a Twitter, Sarah?
Something like that.
Get I've seen it before, yeah.
You can find me at Andrew Ghai on Twitter, and thank you guys so much for watching this episode on my favorite movie.
Yeah, Ben Bateman Media, Twitter and Instagram. You can find me there. One more time, guys, go to iTunes, write us a review, leave us a rating. Once we get to 10 reviews, written reviews on iTunes, we're going to start giving away mugs, 1 per episode. So please get involved. Comment, let us know what you think. We'll see you guys next week for Aliens?
Yeah, we're doing Aliens next week.
Is that next week?
Or is it Die Hard?
Either Aliens or Die Hard.
Promise you, we
But they'll
do
be
this
here.
show. We
Yeah.
work here.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.